I came home to an empty house, I stood in the doorway for a full minute just staring. Not empty like we're redecorating, empty like they had erased themselves. The couch was gone, the dining table my grandmother left us, gone, even the curtains. They had taken the curtains off the rods and left the rods hanging crooked, casting these thin little shadows across bare walls. I walked from room to room like I was taking inventory of a crime scene. My footsteps echoed in a way they never had before, because for 28 years, this house had always been full of something. Noise. Clutter. People talking over each other at dinner. My mother's TV shows running too loud down the hall. Now it was just me and the echo. I should back up. My name is Nora. Wait, no, I keep doing that. I've been telling this story in my head for so long that sometimes I forget where to start. Let me start at the beginning. The real beginning. My name is Cora. I'm 31 years old. I work in commercial insurance, which is as unglamorous as it sounds, but it pays well and I'm good at it. I've lived in the same house in the suburbs of Columbus, Ohio, my entire life, the house my parents bought when I was 2, the house where my younger sister took her first steps in the kitchen, the house where my dad built a crooked bookshelf in a garage that he was inexplicably proud of for 20 years. I'm the oldest. I have one sister, Pam, who is 3 years younger than me and has, since approximately birth, been my mother's favorite. I don't say that with bitterness anymore. I used to. Now I just say it the way you'd say the sky is blue or rent is too high. It's just a fact of my life that I made peace with somewhere around age 19. My dad was quieter about it, he wasn't cruel. He just followed my mother's lead, the way he followed her lead on everything. What to eat for dinner, where to go on vacation, which of his daughters to believe when there was a conflict. My mother's lead always pointed toward Pam. Pam is charming. She's the kind of person who walks into a room and people just turn. She has my mother's eyes and my father's easy laugh, and she figured out early in life that being likable was a skill you could develop, and she developed it intentionally. I don't say that as a criticism either. It's just true. Pam worked for her shine. I just happened to be the sister who didn't shine the same way, and in a family that valued that particular currency, that put me at a permanent deficit. From the time I was maybe 12 or 13, I became the responsible one by default. Not because anyone sat me down and assigned me the role, it just filled itself in around me, the way water fills the shape of whatever container it's poured into. I did the grocery runs when my mom was tired. I helped my dad with paperwork when the small landscaping business he ran started having tax problems. I took Pam to her volleyball tournaments on weekends when my parents had other plans. I learned to cook real meals, not just pasta from a box, because someone needed to, and it turned out that someone was me. By the time I was in my mid-20s and working full-time, I was also quietly paying a portion of the household bills. Not because my parents asked, at least not directly. It started with 1 month when my dad's business hit a rough patch and the electric bill was sitting unpaid on the kitchen counter and I just paid it. And then it happened again. And then it became a thing that simply was. The way most things in my family simply became without anyone ever having a conversation about them. I paid roughly $800 a month into the household. Sometimes more. Utilities, groceries, the occasional car repair. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself I was saving on rent by living at home and this was my contribution, which was fair. I told myself a lot of things that were partially true and partially just the story I needed to believe to keep going. Here's what I did not tell myself, because I wasn't ready to hear it. I was also the only person in that house who did not treat my financial contribution as something owed to me. Pam lived at home until she was 26. She contributed nothing and nobody mentioned it. When she finally moved out, my mother cried for a week like she'd lost a limb. When I turned 29, I started seriously thinking about buying my own place. I had savings. Not extravagant savings, but real ones. I've been careful, I've been consistent. I had a good credit score and a stable income and a financial advisor I met with twice a year who told me I was in better shape than most people my age. I started casually browsing listings. I went to one open house, a little ranch-style place about 15 minutes away, and I came home and told my parents at dinner that I was thinking about it. My mother set down her fork. "You're leaving?" she said, and her voice had that particular tone. Not hurt exactly, more like calculating. Like she was already running numbers. Not immediately, I said. Just thinking about it. Pam's already gone, she said, as if this were relevant. As if my potential departure was an extension of Pam's. I don't know what we'd do without you here. My dad nodded slowly, looking at his plate. I didn't bring it up again for several months. Looking back, I think that dinner was the moment I should have started moving faster. But I didn't, because I loved my parents, and because the thing about being the capable one is that people learn to depend on your capability, and then your capability becomes a cage that everyone acts like is a gift. Things in the house shifted over the following year in ways that were hard to name. My mother became more critical. Small things. The way I loaded the dishwasher, the fact that I kept my bedroom door closed sometimes, the volume of my work calls when I was working from home. My dad seemed distracted, distant in a way I chalked up to the landscaping business which had been struggling. Then last March, on a Sunday afternoon when I'd just gotten back from the grocery store, my mother called me into the living room. She had this expression on her face, bright, artificially bright, like someone who has rehearsed something and is nervous about the performance. My dad was sitting on the couch. He didn't look at me when I walked in. "We have some exciting news," my mother said. They had sold the house. Not were thinking about selling, not wanted to discuss. Had sold, past tense. A young couple from out of state was buying it. Closing was in 60 days. They were moving to Arizona. My mother had a sister there. She'd always wanted to be closer. The weather, the lower cost of living, they were ready for a change. She kept talking and I kept standing there in the middle of the living room holding 2 paper grocery bags with my keys still in my hand. And I noticed, very distantly, that the groceries had cost $47 and I had paid for them this morning and the house was already sold. "We told the realtor we had a daughter still living here," my mother said, "and at least she had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable at this part. So we wanted to give you plenty of time. You have 2 months. That should be more than enough to find an apartment." I asked if I had any say in this. She looked genuinely puzzled. "It's our house, Cora." She wasn't wrong about that. It was their house. I had paid $800 a month into it for years, paid for groceries and utilities and one very expensive HVAC repair 3 summers ago, but my name was not on the deed. Because it had never occurred to anyone that it should be, and it had never occurred to me to ask, because that's not how things worked in my family. Things just were. I said okay. I went to my room. I sat on the edge of my bed for a long time. And then I did something I had never done in my life. I opened my laptop, and I called in every favor, and I started making calls on Monday morning. Here is something I knew that my parents did not know I knew. The house had been appraised the previous fall at $312,000. I knew this because my dad had mentioned it in passing during one of his business stress spirals, and because I'm the kind of person who files information away without meaning to. I also knew that the young couple from out of state my mother had mentioned had made an offer of $305,000, which the realtor had apparently called very strong for the current market. I called the realtor. Her name was Anne. She was surprised to hear from me, not least because I told her I was the current resident and I had some questions about the sale. "The sellers are my parents," I said. A pause. "Oh, I'd like to make an offer," I said. Another pause, longer this time. I will not pretend this was easy or that I knew exactly what I was doing. I spent 3 days on the phone with my financial advisor, with a mortgage broker, with a real estate attorney friend of a work colleague who agreed to consult for a flat fee because she found the situation interesting. My savings covered a substantial down payment. My income qualified me for a mortgage on the rest. The numbers were tight, but they worked. They worked in the particular way that things work when you have spent years being careful because you had to be, because no one was going to catch you if you fell. I offered $320,000. Cash on hand down payment, conventional mortgage for the remainder, 30-day close. My parents accepted without knowing it was me. The way it worked, real estate transactions often go through LLCs or trust accounts, especially when investors or unconventional buyers are involved. My attorney set up a simple holding structure. The offer came in under my business name, the one I'd registered 2 years ago for a side consulting project I'd never fully launched but had never dissolved either. CM Holdings, LLC. My parents' realtor presented it to them as a strong secondary offer from a local investor. My mother called me 3 days later, excited. "The sale fell through with the first buyers," she said, which wasn't entirely accurate. The first buyers had simply been outbid, but we got an even better offer. "We're going to clear more than we expected." She sounded thrilled. My dad was quiet in the background. "That's great," I said. "You're still looking for apartments?" she said. "I'm working on something," I said. I want to be honest about how I felt during this time because I think it matters. I was not plotting revenge. I want to be clear about that. I was not sitting in my childhood bedroom cackling over some elaborate scheme. I was scared, mostly. I was sad in a way that I didn't have words for yet. The particular grief of realizing that the people who were supposed to be your home had looked at you and seen a logistical problem to be solved with a 2-month notice period. Buying the house was practical. It was the right house at a fair price in a neighborhood I knew. It stabilized me at a moment when I needed stability. If my parents had been strangers, no one would have blinked. The fact that they were my parents is what made it strange. Or maybe it's what made it the only thing that made sense. Closing day was a Thursday. I took a half day from work. I signed my name 11 times and initialed 23 more and walked out of the title company's office with a set of keys that I, patently, already had for 28 years, but that now meant something legally and completely different. My parents moved out on a Saturday in May. My mother had hired movers, efficient ones, and by noon the house was stripped of everything that belonged to them. I'd offered to help. She said they had it handled. I stood in my almost empty childhood bedroom and watched a stranger carry boxes through the front door. I had helped my dad repaint 3 years ago. My mother hugged me on her way out. A quick hug, efficient. "You'll be fine," she said, which was not exactly the send-off I would have chosen. "I know," I said. My dad hugged me longer. He seemed like he wanted to say something and couldn't find it. I wasn't going to help him find it. He let go and walked to the car. I watched them drive away and I did not cry, which surprised me. I thought I would cry, which surprised me. I thought I would cry. Then I walked back inside and stood in the empty living room and let myself feel the size of what I'd done. I repainted, took 2 weekends. I chose colors I'd always wanted. A soft green for the kitchen, warm white through the main rooms, a deep blue-gray for what had been my bedroom and was now my actual bedroom, not my childhood bedroom, not a guest room waiting to happen, mine. I had furniture delivered, nothing extravagant, but chosen, each piece something I had picked because I liked it. I built a bookshelf in the garage. It came out slightly crooked. I was, inexplicably, proud of it. For 6 months, I did not hear much from my parents. Occasional texts from my mother, updates about Arizona, the heat, the sister she'd moved to be closer to. I responded warmly but briefly. I missed my dad. I wasn't sure how to be in touch with him independent of my mother. We'd never had that kind of relationship, but I was figuring it out. Pam called me in October. We had always been in that category of sisters who were not close but were not enemies, adjacent to each other's lives without quite inhabiting them. She knew I was still in Columbus. She did not know where I was living. "Are you still in that apartment you found?" she asked. "I'm in a house," I said. "Oh, nice. You bought." "I did." "Good for you," she said, and I could tell she meant it, which was Pam's best quality. She didn't begrudge people their good fortune when it didn't cost her anything. Then, the Saturday before Thanksgiving, my mother sent a text. Not just to me, a family group message that also included Pam and some cousins I barely spoke to. She was coming back to Columbus for a few weeks over the holidays, she said, staying at a hotel. She wanted everyone to get together. Maybe host Christmas at the old house, she suggested. If the new owners are agreeable, she'd always loved Christmas in that house, all those memories. I read that message sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee going cold beside me. I set my phone down. I picked it up again. I put it back down. Then I typed back into the group chat. "That would be lovely. It's my house now. I bought it in May. You're all welcome to come for Christmas." 3 minutes passed. 5. My cousin Rena sent a string of question mark emojis. Pam called me. She started laughing before I even finished saying hello. You bought the house? She said. Mom's house? Our house? My house, I said. Cora. She was still laughing. A slightly bewildered laugh. Does Mom know? She does now, I said. My mother did not respond to the group chat for 2 hours. When she did, it was a private message to me, just me. What do you mean you bought the house? That's not possible. The buyers were investors from out of state. I took a breath. Then I typed, CM Holdings, LLC. The C&M stand for Cora Marie. I'm the investor. I've been living here since you moved out. Another long pause. Then, why didn't you tell us? And I thought about that question for a long time before I answered it. Because the honest answer was complicated. Because I wasn't trying to deceive them forever, the LLC would have come up eventually, in taxes, in records, in the natural way that facts surface. Because I had been caught off guard and scared and processing grief and making a practical financial decision, and the overlap between all those things had created a situation I hadn't fully planned. But also, and this is the part I had to be honest with myself about, I hadn't told them because I needed to know I could do it. I needed to stand in that closing office and sign my name and hold those keys and know that I had done something significant and real and entirely my own, without anyone deciding whether I deserved to. I had spent a long time waiting for permission in that house. I needed to stop waiting. Because it was my decision to make, I typed back. And I made it. My mother called me that night. The conversation was long and difficult and covered territory that probably should have been covered years ago. She cried. I didn't, but I was close a few times. She said she hadn't realized, and I believe she believed that, which is maybe the saddest part. She hadn't realized how much I was carrying because she'd never looked. Not because she was a monster, but because it's easy not to look at things when looking would require you to change. My dad called the next morning. Just him, without my mother in the background. That was new. I know, he said when I answered. He didn't say anything else for a moment. I know I should have. Done more. Said more. Said more. Yeah, I said. You should have. He exhaled slowly. The house looks good. You're comfortable? Really comfortable, I said. I repainted. You should see the kitchen. I'd like to, he said quietly. If that's okay. We'll figure it out, I said. Christmas was at my house. My parents came. Pam came with her boyfriend. My cousin Rena came and spent the first 20 minutes walking through every room asking questions. It was strange and it was not quite comfortable, and there were moments when the weight of everything we weren't saying sat visibly in the room with us. But there were also moments when it wasn't strange at all. When my dad sat at my kitchen table with his coffee and looked out the window at the backyard and seemed, briefly, simply happy to be somewhere familiar. When Pan helped me carry out dishes and we stood in my kitchen together and she said, low enough that no one else could hear, "You did good, Cora. I mean it." My mother stood in the living room doorway after dinner, looking at the soft green I'd painted the kitchen, at the furniture I'd chosen, at the bookshelf crooked in the garage that she'd spotted through the window and shaken her head at, smiling despite herself. "It's still home," she said. I don't think she meant it as a gift, but I took it as one anyway. It's my home. It was always going to be mine. I just had to stop waiting for someone to hand it to me and go get it myself.